Hey folks, welcome back into another episode of the Mark and Austin Show on the Mark and Lesko podcast. You hate to see a game where there was that many points scored and was that exciting and that many swings in momentum, etc., effectively get ended by the ref.
I remember when you did that interview, I think it was for the game against Georgia. They were asking you about your dad's play there in the national championship, and I think you said that he could have gotten more separation, but
there were some technique fundamentals of the receiver that weren't perfect in the 80s. I had to throw in a few points of critique there.
Yeah, man, he played for the Steelers and the Eagles both, so he was doing some things right for sure. Playing in the NFL. So
like the video if you like the video, ring the notification bells. Have a phenomenal weekend. As always, we'll catch you in the next one.
We are back for another episode of Muscle Radio with Lesley Timbol. Lesley, as always, it is great to have you back on. Today we're going to talk bullying and gym bullies, which something I think we've all experienced. Even as people who go to the gym all the time, and someone like me who's a bigger guy, I've still experienced some bullying in my life, and I've experienced some gym bullies in the past too. Some people don't care and they'll talk crap to just about anybody. So, we think this is a good topic to cover today. And for those of you who lift, I think you can all relate to this too. So Lesley, thanks for coming back on. It's great to have you back on.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I look forward to this topic.
Yeah. So is it something you've experienced yourself too?
On a very mild level, but that was more in high school and that was more with girls. So it wasn't necessarily a gym, it was in the school. But it wasn't as vicious as many other women have gone through. But I've heard through a lot of my clientele, their stories of when they were kids, whether they were bullied, let's say on the bus, they were bullied in school, they were bullied by teachers, obviously parents. Then as they get a little bit older, then it's, like you were saying, in the gym, it does happen. Now, sometimes what happens is that when there's bullying, let's say in the gym, it doesn't mean that that gym is necessarily horrible. It's just that certain types of people tend to go at certain times of the day.
Yep.
And it has to do with, let's say, the gym culture. Because I've been in a lot of gyms where there's very high elite athletes in there, but they treat you like you're just like one of them kind of thing. Like they don't treat you, they don't look down on you. They're happy to help you. They're very respectful. They don't walk around like I'm an IFBB pro and you're not, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, there's those that are bullies, but chances are the ones that are bullies, they're bullies because they have an insecurity. And not to say we don't all have insecurities, I think we all do, but they don't take ownership, and rather than deal with their own personal issues, what they do is they take it out on other people.
Yeah, that's something that I've actually seen even in this college town that I'm in. And it's only girls that I've experienced it with, but they were pros. Even though, as John Romano says, they hand them out like birthday cards nowadays. They competed. They I don't even know if they were pros or not, but they competed, got like third, and they definitely walked around like with their nose in the air. And to me, it's like, one, like you're not as attractive as you think you are, in my opinion. And I don't care. It doesn't matter if you've competed. You're not better than anybody. And they definitely act like they are. But that's something I've experienced personally. Not to me personally, but it's something I've noticed.
There will be those for sure that do take whatever win they got, their title, and they really wear it all, like wear it as like a badge of honor. Now, I'm not saying it's, if you win a pro card or a show, you should be proud of it. I'm not trying to take away from that. but it's almost like you're rubbing it in other people's faces that, haha, I got this, you don't. So it becomes that power differential, and that's when it becomes more of a bullying thing versus, hey, I'm really proud, look what I've accomplished. That's different, because I think people should be proud of their accomplishments, but again, not using the accomplishments to make other people feel crappy. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Now, when you were saying that you were bullied before, Mark, directly, can you share any experiences you've had?
Well, I was like bullied in, in school. I think it was like elementary school, middle school, even some in high school. And, it was a combination of things. I think it's the type of school I went to. And your class makes a huge difference, who your class is. So, that makes a huge difference. But like I remember there was people who were saying stuff about my sister at the time. She was like really little. They were saying stuff about her. Pretty vulgar stuff. And I actually got in a fight. And that was like the only fight I've really ever gotten in. But what was funny was I was actually talking to my dad about this the other day because it was kind of a funny story now. But we were at an assembly with the whole school, and it was like a dentist talking to us about something. And I stood up in the middle of the assembly, turned around and punched this kid right in the mouth in front of the whole school. So everyone saw it. And I remember yelling like what he did. And I'll say from then on, I never heard another thing about my sister. And I wasn't really bullied from that on either. He like everyone knew that he did this, and this is what I did about it. Even though I don't think I even won the fight. In fact, I remember my friend came over and held me back trying to break it up, and the kid clocked me in the face, got a good shot on me while my friend was holding my arms. So I don't, but the message was sent, and I think, my opinion, that's the best way to deal with it, is making a public, almost like a public thing about it. Well, I don't know. In your opinion, probably it might not be, but I thought it definitely like worked. And that's not why I did it. I was just mad, but it definitely worked. I never heard, like I said, I never heard another thing about it. So.
See, the thing is that bullies don't typically stop unless there's some type of motivation for them to stop, meaning that they'll be further embarrassed in this particular situation. Or let's say there's a bigger bully, so it's kind of or they have something, if you were as strong, or, you whatever it might be, if there was some level of fear or respect on his end, then he would be choosing basically someone else to make fun of, because that's the thing, they get bored. So what they do is they pick on, well, in this case it was your sister.
Yeah,
I have no doubt that he found somebody else to pick on at some point after that fact, whether it be in the school or out of the school. So it happens, it doesn't feel good, and a lot of times we're not, we're kind of told, well, I'm Canadian, so we're supposed to be nice, right? But there's a time to be, try to be mature about it. And there are times that are like, you don't want to be mature about it.
Yeah.
So, because you want to send a message. But we're also in an age, though, Mark, you have to be careful because more people are more prone to contact the police. You don't want to go to, the whole hassle of going to the, whether it be, the police station or a jail, like it's such a pain in the butt. So,
yeah,
it's, is there another way of doing it? So I do agree in that particular situation, you had to kind of stand up for yourself. Not that you planned to do it. Like you said, it's just kind of a gut reaction when you're in the assembly. But when people are being bullied, it is important to try to stay calm and composed, because bullies feed off of energy. And if they know that they're getting to you, it's like a game to them. They feel like, oh, I got to you. It's kind of like if Big Brother pokes you and you're like, stop that. He pokes harder, right? It's like they just want to get the reaction out of you. So while it is super hard to do, trying to stay calm and composed so they're not triggered by because the more animated you get, potentially, now I don't know if he would have had the same response if he wasn't in an auditorium, because there were other people present, including teachers. Like if it was just you and him as an example, that might have been a different story, because again, he feeds off of that energy, especially if he's got his boys around, because then he feels he has to show off to his boys, so that or the boys can kind of back him up if he gets into trouble for whatever reason. So you always have to be careful of that. Also, always be aware of your escape routes, just in case. It's important to document any kind of incidents. So whether this is like, let's say, school or the gym, regardless of the location, when it happened, where it happened, who was involved, detail as much information as you can, because if this becomes a pattern, then you can report this person. So let's say if it's at the school, you can report it to one of the teachers, the principal, whatever. If it's at the gym, you can report it to, let's say, the gym manager or whoever's at the front desk, so they can get the powers that be to say, look, this is a problem. Because the thing is, as a gym owner, you don't want to have bullying behavior. You want people to feel that they can work out in a safe environment. So that means if I'm a gym owner, if someone brought this to my attention, then I would want to have that conversation with that person to give them a warning at the very least.
Yeah.
And again, if it's been documented, this was brought to my attention, and it happens again, there'll be consequences. So that's why it's important. Now, let's say bullying in the workplace. Maybe, now that can be a little tricky, especially if it's your boss, in which case a lot of times workplaces will have something called an employee assistance program, an EAP. So where you can contact one of their counselors that are paid. It's supposed to be confidential between the therapist and the employee, to talk about how do I deal with it if I'm being bullied by my supervisor, as an example. If it's by a colleague, you can talk to your supervisor. Sometimes you can go to HR. Sometimes you can't go to HR because they're in line with the powers that be. So it gets a little complicated. But when in doubt, you can always talk to a professional like myself to say, what are your options given the situation? Because it's not a one size fits all, because there's so many different dynamics at play. And like I said, some HRs are more above board, and some are in line with the powers that be.
Yeah.
So that can have some kind of backlash to it, depending on the situation. Another is learning assertive communication, which you actually did. Like, you stood up for your sister.
Yeah.
You letting them know that, look, you know what, if you choose to talk like this, I'm going to respond like this. You're not going to get away with it. But you're going to try to say it without threats, ideally, in the grand scheme of things, in the ideal world. It's about being assertive, about telling them, hey, this is not acceptable. You making fun of my sister, blah, blah, blah. And asking them to stop, use a confident tone, and you maintain the eye contact to let them know that you're serious. Now, they could laugh it off. No question about it. I expect them to laugh it off. But you did your due diligence. You did what you needed to do. Whether there's other people around or not, he knows, oh, he stood up for me. Now, he can't look surprised or intimidated in any respect, because he loses ground. Again, it's all posturing. But again, you don't want to push him too hard, because you don't know what he's capable of. Another thing you can do is, even if sometimes bullying and harassment, they can go hand in hand. So harassment could be physical harassment. It could be sexual harassment too. Bottom line is, You're in a gym. Likely you're not the only person in the gym. Get a staff member, let them know, hang around them, saying, look, I don't feel comfortable. This guy is like whatever. And they'll keep an eye on him. And most gyms will also have cameras. But they don't necessarily look through the cameras every day. But if you look, let's say, hey, yesterday at 2:00, blah, 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 then they can go back in the cameras and look.
Yeah. Right.
And then also other gym members. It's not just the staff, it's other gym members. A lot of times when we work out, we get to know, called the regulars, the people who've also go to that same gym. You may not know them super well, but you recognize their face because they go the same days you go, same times. And it might be just kind of like a, hey, you know, and that's okay, because the idea is you want other people to respect their time in the gym. But sometimes in between sets, there's a little bit of chitter chatter, and that's okay. And let them know if you feel a little creeped out, or some guy's a little, you know, throwing his stuff or his weights around a little bit too aggressively, a little bit too close to your foot, you know, whatever it might be, you know, like, it's like, make a note of it and tell them, because they can kind of keep an eye on him too. You have more eyeballs. That's your protection, especially in a gym. You want more eyeballs to help you out when there's someone that's having that kind of behavior towards you. Now, if you've got someone who tends to approach you, then it's okay to wear, let's say, headphones or some kind of like ear pod or whatever to focus on your workout. So if you want to avoid these people because you see them in the gym, they might be one of the regulars. So if you want to kind of avoid them, you try to avoid contact. You just kind of focus on your set, whatever you're doing. You listen to your music and you just kind of zone in. So they're basically outside noise, even if they're training right beside you. It's so what I call it, it's almost like a personal bubble you put yourself in, and you basically discourage any interactions with potential bullies by just being in your own zone when you work out. Now, obviously, if the gym staff does not address the bullying behavior for whatever reason, or if the situation escalates, consider reporting the issue to higher authorities. So it could be the gym's corporate office, it could be the local authorities, it could be the police. So I mean, you know, you always have other options out there. You don't have to do it by yourself. So basically, in short, talk to somebody when it comes to this kind of stuff, because again, I don't want people to feel like they have to suffer in silence, because that's not good either.
Now, before the episode, you were mentioning about like contacting police and it being like a hassle. Right? Is that?
I don't. You have to jog my memory on that one.
Well, I don't think so. You would encourage contacting the police if you need to, even though like that can be kind of a hassle. I mean, I think sometimes people are afraid to call the police on maybe some people because maybe they know a cop, or maybe they come from money and they could like sue you or something. You know, do you think there should be any fear of retaliation in that sense if you contact police? I mean, not even like necessarily the fact that they might know a cop or whatever, but the fact that, you know, maybe they could sue them because they embarrassed them by calling the cops, you know, just something stupid like that.
Well, here's the thing. You can always let's say you make an anonymous call to the police saying, this is the situation, what do you recommend? So they don't have the absolute, you know, all the details, but as far as who you are or the identity of the other person. But if you go into more general statements as far as, you know, what would you, if I'm speaking, let's say I'm the person who is calling to the police to say, I'd like to make an anonymous phone call to you guys because I have a situation and I want your advice on it. They can't force you to share your identity. And if you want to do like *67 or whatever it is to block your number, or go to a payphone or whatever, you can do that too. But they've got way more bigger fish to fry than figure out who you are.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing is that if not to say that that can't be the case if they know someone in the police department, check out with a lawyer. But again, the thing is that that's more of an extreme situation. That's assuming now if this happens in a gym, that the gym manager doesn't do anything about it. They want to keep their reputation, because the thing is, it's not just if we'll call it bully. The bully is X. If X is working out, chances are they're not bullying just you, they're bullying other people. Now, maybe the others have been too afraid to come forward, but if I'm the gym owner, I'm going to keep an eye on X just to see what his behavior is like with you and with other people. Because that looks bad on me and my reputation, because that's going to scare my clients away, which affects me business-wise. So I find it kind of hard pressed. Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, that if I'm the manager, the bully is a friend of mine. So I may not want to do anything. That's where you can go into the police. Or here's the other thing, and it sucks to be able to do this, because if they're friends, that gets a little sticky. You may need to consider another gym. Now, it might be, well, why, Lesley? Why should I change a gym? And why can't they be, and in the ideal situation, yes, you're right. But here's the thing. You could get the police involved. You can sue them. But again, when it comes to friends, it gets really sticky. Now if they know each other, they're not good friends, but they know each other because X has been a long-term member of this gym. That's different. But friends is a very different scenario. And usually you can find out pretty easily if they're friends or not. So again, it's not a tailored one kind of approach fits everybody. It really depends on a bunch of factors. But when in doubt, talk to someone. You can try to, because here's the other thing. Even if you don't know that if X is the bully and the manager are good friends, when you bring it to the manager's attention, how he or she responds is a good first step as far as, are they friends or not, because are they defending that person right away, or are they actually taking your concern seriously? So in other words, are they trying to downplay it? Oh, you misunderstand, they're not like that, blah blah blah. Well, that's a bit of a red flag to me.
Yeah, right. So okay, yeah, that answers the question. And I guess we can just get into like the gym bullying side of it. And not everyone who does steroids is a bad person, obviously.
Right.
But you're dealing with, in some cases, really big men or really strong women that are juiced to the max. And that's scary when you're dealing with people who are roided out of their minds. And, I'm 6'1", 230 on average. That's my regular weight. And there's some people that are bigger than me that, not necessarily that I'm scared of them, but it's like I'm not gonna like even try to mess with you, because you're just so much bigger than I am, so much stronger than I am. So I guess you kind of answered it already, but that's like, this isn't like your typical bully. This is someone who is, they could do some damage for sure.
Most people who are doing, now you don't have to be, as you know, there are a lot of people who do steroids that don't compete. And because they want to look a certain way, and the steroids help make them look that way. So usually they don't up their doses unless they're preparing, let's say, to attend an event. Even if I'm going to talk about athletes in a second, but even for regular people who do not compete, who take high doses, they're likely going to get ready because either they're doing a photo shoot, either they're going to get ready because they're going to be in the spotlight, meaning they might be going to an expo where other people can see them. If they're an ambassador of a particular, whether it be a product line or nutrition or clothing line or whatever, they need to be able to represent their whatever their whoever their sponsor is. So they have to look a certain way. They're typically not like that all the time. So again, you'll see it's kind of like a roller coaster. You'll see them where they're somewhat decent and then they kind of fall down. Now, bodybuilders, those who take, now not, as you know, Mark, not all people who take steroids that are bodybuilders have those kind of high and lows. There are some that do, and obviously some manage it better than others too. There's certain substances that definitely trigger that kind of aggressive behavior. Even if someone's not typically as aggressive, this can bring their, that kind of anger to a different height. You'll see it, how they train, how they talk, how they walk. You stay away from them.
Yep.
So whether they're bodybuilders or they're in the fitness industry and they're not necessarily competing, basically you just steer clear of them because you cannot rationalize with them. They're not even thinking clearly. A lot of times bodybuilders, when they're on a cycle that triggers their anger in that way, they're taking a particular substance, they don't know how they're acting. To them, it seems very, well, of course I was acting that way because they were triggered me. When if they looked at it in a different situation, or when their friends tell them, you were a real asshole when, when you were taking that stuff. And again, it's not that they're normally like that. They might have, not to say we all have anger, but it gets out of hand and they get easily triggered. But yeah, when you get those people and you see them, you stay clear. And if you're normally doing, let's say, I don't know, leg day, and let's say you want to do the leg press and they're on the leg press and there's another leg press right beside them, don't even do that leg press. Go somewhere else. Do some like walking lunges, whether it be dumbbell, barbell, like find something else, find a hack squat, find something else. You just don't want to stay away from them when they're like that. Now, I'm not saying if there's a competitor doing a leg press, you can't be beside them. Again, it depends on the energy and you can feel it. There's a difference between someone being in the zone and really focusing and being really angry, throwing things around. You can tell by their body language if they're in that kind of angry zone.
Yeah. And it comes down to, I think, just common sense, human instincts. Should I be around this person? 100%. And there's a lot of people, I'm sure I can come off this way sometimes in the gym where I look like I don't want to be talked to, but that's really not the case. I'm just working out, I'm focused, and I have RBF, I kind of have resting bitch face as it is. So, but if really anybody would come and talk to me, I'd be nice. So.
And again, you'll see it throughout the set. So most people who train or who know what that's like, they're like that too. I mean, if you're a serious lifter, you're not going to be smiling when you're training. If anything, you'll be grimacing. You might swear under your breath. You'll do funny faces. This is not an enjoy. It's not like it's fun, but not in a happy way per se. You're happy when it's done, and you're happy with the results as if you're building lean muscle tissue or whatever. But it's not necessarily. You can have fun in the gym, yes, but it's not fun in the traditional sense of fun.
Yeah. Right.
But, sometimes when people are in that situation, being bullied, it's kind of, well, how do I kind of deal with this piece, this stuff that goes in my mind? Because it doesn't feel good, one, but, sometimes we have these negative thoughts where we think, oh, I'm weak. It's all my fault, that kind of stuff. And sometimes we realize, no, that's not the case. But sometimes when we're in that mode, it's hard to get out of that mode. So what I would say is I want you to challenge those thoughts. So when you're saying to yourself, oh, I'm weak because I can't even stand up to this guy on steroids. No, you're not weak. That's smart. It's like, it's, you got to, like, to your point, common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't common sense. Like, to me, it's common sense for people to put their dumbbells back on the rack. To me, that's common sense, but apparently at some gyms, that's not the case.
Yeah.
So, but if you challenge these thoughts by questioning the accuracy, am I weak? Well, no, I'm not weak. Just because I don't stand up to someone, just because I can stand up to someone doesn't mean I should. Because again, I'm trying to be smart. Are they in a space where we're going to be able to have a proper conversation, or I think they're going to really rip my head off?
Yeah.
Because again, saying, are you weak? No, because you're at the gym. You're getting stronger every day. And you're increasing your weights over a period of time, because whatever weights you were doing last year, you're probably doing something different this year, or you're lifting differently to recruit those muscles. So no, you're not weak, right? Not physically. And then the mental weakness is it actually takes strength to restrain yourself, because sometimes we want to say something or do something, but we actually have to hold ourselves back. Like, you actually have people who held you back, physically, but we actually need to mentally hold ourselves back to say, is this really worth it? If I do stand up for myself, even though that's the right thing to do, sometimes it's better just to walk away, because it's just not worth that price.
Yeah.
But, developing assertiveness skills, so saying, expressing your thoughts, and your feelings confidently by setting boundaries and just standing up for yourself in a calm and respectful manner, that can be very helpful too. And again, it's not so much will they do it or not, this is part of your self-confidence to saying, can you do that? Whether they listen to you or not, you have no control over whether they listen to you or not. You only have control over what your part in the situation is. So there is time to be assertive, and there's a time to saying you got to walk away.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then managing emotional responses, that's a huge one. They can trigger us like no tomorrow. So managing our emotions is super important. So, sometimes in order to manage our emotions, what we have to do is take a step back and just kind of reorient ourselves. I tell people, I want you to imagine, and I don't know if this, actually, I think it does still work on computers, Control Delete. Take a moment, do some deep breathing, just to kind of calm yourself down. Because again, when our emotions go high, our ability to think clearly actually goes down. So it's not to say we can get our emotions completely down, but even if we get it down a couple of notches, then all of a sudden we can start to think more clearly and make better judgments. So it's important to do relaxation exercises or meditation. Mindfulness is really big. That can help you stay calm in very challenging situations. And it's important to develop emotional resilience regardless, whether it's, with bullies, whether it's dealing with stressful situations, life will throw us curveballs. It's important to learn how to manage our emotions. It doesn't mean you can't cry. It just means, how do you bounce back when life gets to you, in whatever respect that looks like. So that can be done personally by just working on it. It can also be helpful to have that supportive network. So whether that be family, friends, gym family, gym friends, you want that, that social support, because no matter who you are, at some point in time, you're going to need a helping hand. And, we help other people, and there's no shame in asking for help sometimes when we need it. So if we're not feeling strong, it's okay to ask for help. And then when people think of themselves as a victim, because sometimes it can feel like that way, it feels like the world's against us. And it's like, why me? I would tell people, remember what your strengths are and practice resilience. Because you didn't make it this far on a prayer. Like maybe there was praying involved, but you got here because you have skills. You do have strengths. You may forget what those are, but you didn't just kind of luckily make it to this far. There were too many curveballs that you actually negotiated and learned from to be able to say, hey, these are better decisions and these are not so good decisions based on my past. And I'm learning from them by making different decisions moving forward in similar situations. So remind yourself that the bully's behavior is a reflection of their own issues, not you, their issues. And so it's not a reflection of your worth or your abilities. So separating the bully from you, you're completely independent. Again, this bully isn't a bully just to you. This bully is a bully to a lot of people. And it has to do with control and, like I said, insecurities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. That's, pretty much any time, it doesn't happen to me. It hasn't happened to me a lot. I mean, besides like when I was bullied in school, but as an adult, I've used a lot of my experiences to become better. So, I was like a skinny kid in high school. I was an athlete, but I was a pretty skinny kid, and now have a good physique. I'm a bodybuilder. No one in their right mind would try and mess with me. Not that I'm looking for any type of trouble, but no one in their right mind would mess with me. So I've gotten better, and I used the negative experiences to become better. And there's a lot of, I'm sure, people from the past that maybe had opinions of me, good or bad, that, if they saw me now, probably wouldn't have too many negative opinions of me. You know what I mean? Not that I care what they think, but it's like clearly, whatever happened didn't bother me enough to where I let it affect me so bad that, I got into drugs or I killed myself or whatever. Because it didn't. And I've in fact used it for motivation. So
You used it for fuel.
Yeah. And, as bodybuilders, all of us in some way are fucked up. I think any bodybuilder would say that. So in some way, we have a couple screws loose. And I mean, you would have to put yourself through pain willingly, just for something that isn't even guaranteed, so yeah, it's we're now there, like I think we've talked about it, but there are people in the fitness industry who I don't consider in the fitness industry, whether they're big or not or compete or not. If you're a scumbag and you're a bully, you're not in the fitness industry, because that's not the way the fitness industry is. Fitness industry is people like you, people like Dave Palumbo, people who help people, Lee Priest, that are good people. They are nice to people. They've used their incredible, sometimes genetics, like Lee Priest and Dave, for the better. They could have wasted their genetics. A lot of people do, but they didn't. They made the most of them. And, that's what the fitness industry is. So I think another thing is, if you're a bully and you are into fitness and stuff, you're just a douchebag. You're not, you can identify with the fitness industry, but you're really not a part of it, because that's not, especially if you are bigger and stronger than most people and you use it to prey on the weak, you're not a good person, and you're not a part of the fitness industry, regardless of what people say. Deep down, you're not. I think they know they're not either, if that makes sense. So
They're trying to cheat, right? Getting through life and not having to really make self-improvements. So instead of, I would have a lot more respect for someone who was a bully that realized, hey, this is not good. I have to stop doing this. They did whatever work that they needed to do, and they became better people. That's different. But for those who don't change and continuing that bullying mindset, that's okay, we all know who you are, and you don't have our respect. So unfortunately, there's people who don't know who you are, but that's why it's important for people who don't know. There's I don't know if you've seen on Instagram Goob YouTube.
I don't
He
think so.
calls out fitness professionals, and I love it.
I'll have to look him up right now.
Yeah, he calls out people, and I love it because it shows that he dedicates time. Like, this is what he does to educate the public who follow him, to say, look, stay away from these people. He does
What's
that
his
to kind of
page?
shows. I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Goob, Goob, and I don't know if it's underscore YouTube or something like that, but I'll send you the link.
I got it. Followed by Joey Swole. That's a good, and you. That's a good sign. Because Joey Swole does that too.
Yeah, so I mean, there's other people which I like, again, because they care about the industry, because that they're not a good representation. Because the last thing you want is someone who's just trying to get into the industry. They don't know who to trust, which I understand because they're new. They happen to come across these people, not knowing that they're garbage, or they're not. They should be run the other way. But if they're on some type of whether be Goob or whether be it doesn't matter. Like, there's a lot of different people out there that will actually call people out. And a lot of times there'll be whisperings to say, stay away from that person. But when you're in, that's why it's so important for people who are getting into the industry. If you're not sure who to trust, go to the ones that are true. Like, do your due diligence. Really look at their social media. What kind of content are they putting out there? Look at their style. Maybe they do some podcasts. Look at how they speak. Are they being respectful of other people? Are they bashing people? I mean, do a little bit of due diligence to find out, the type of people you do want to follow. Because I understand being in the industry, because it's so big, right? The industry is so big, the fitness industry. It's hard to know who to trust. So I get that. So that's why it's really important to ask questions too.
Yeah, it goes back to our previous episode about fitness influencers and the toxicity with that. Yeah, and that's a lot of people fall for that. But I was going to use someone in the fitness industry who no one respects, and that's Sean Ray. I think he's a good example of someone who I've never met him personally, but quite frankly, he's a coward, and he just doesn't do a lot of good, and he's not liked.
It's unfortunate because as a bodybuilder, I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's obviously, yes, great physique. For me personally, same thing as Arnold. I like Arnold as a bodybuilder, and I think he has done a lot of good for the world. But there's a lot of stuff that he said, especially recently, that I'm just like, I separate him from his politics and everything because, quite frankly, I think they're horrible. But he's someone that bodybuilding done a ton of good. And that's how I identify him. Same with Sean Ray as a bodybuilder. He was second in the Olympia how many times to Dorian Yates?
Yeah, I forgot the number, but yeah, like, again, as a bodybuilder, I think he was amazing. But as a person trying to promote the sport, that's different, because when he had the microphone, he wasn't productive. He wasn't, like, there's a difference between giving someone constructive criticism.
Yeah.
I like this about you, but this is maybe an area you can build if maybe if you tried this or consider this, to help you maybe place higher at the next show. Okay, that's a bit more constructive, but it felt just like he was just criticism. If you ever watch Fuad Abiad, he has his own channel on which just does extremely well. Yep. When he talks about other bodybuilders, he is so respectful. He always gives like kind of that constructive critique to people because he wants everyone to do their best. Like, he's got his athletes, so obviously, he wants his athletes to win for sure. But it's not doesn't mean he wishes ill will on any of the other athletes. He wants everyone to bring in their best package, and he and Dennis James were, what was it? Was it the Olympia last year? I'm trying to remember where they would talk. And it was also, I think Phil Heath was on it, but there was an issue with
you talk about the commentating?
The commentating, yeah. See, when they commentate, like, again, it's they're not just blowing smoke up everyone's butts, like they say, hey, this is really good and he looks really conditioned, but if you could just bring it a touch more, like, again, it's just they're trying to let the guys know that they're still rooting for them. They're not giving up on them just because they don't come in perfect, because who comes in perfect, really? And that's what you want from a commentator or anyone talking in the bodybuilding industry, because let's face it, it's hard to make it to that level. Yeah. And they get ripped to shreds sometimes. It's nice to give, like I said, constructive feedback. And to your point, Sean Ray wasn't able to do that, which is unfortunate. What's that?
Arnold did that too. He was mentioning Nick Walker's
abs or something. No, the veins or something.
Varicose veins, right? And it's like, yeah, like he can help that. You know what I mean? There's nothing he can do about that.
Yeah, that wasn't necessary. Yeah. I agree.
And I agree with him that it doesn't really look good, but he's still an absolute freak.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if he has that or not, because he can't help that. Now, like Dave Palumbo says all the time, we're bodybuilders, don't do anything. Like, don't go ride a bike, don't go play football, basketball, that's just so like if you wreck your bike and you have a huge scar on your arm, I think that should be penalized, because you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. You know what I mean? But varicose veins, obviously, like, you can't help that.
No, I know. It's just, and sometimes, it doesn't need to be said. And you're not getting judged on whether you have varicose veins showing or not. You're showing, it's the whole structure. It's, it's your conditioning, obviously, how the muscle is being round and the symmetry. There's so much. It's not on varicose. I've never seen a judge's score sheet that has anything to say varicose veins on it.
Well, Dave and Bob Chick, they just got into a back and forth, and obviously Dave always wins those back and forth, but Bob Chick, another guy, never met personally, but my goodness, he just seems to have a huge ego for no reason.
And again, I like him as an announcer.
Yeah, great voice. Great voice.
He has a great voice. But as far as being, even when a few things about my thoughts on Bob is that, the back and forth he has with Dave, it ends up getting like these little jabs. And I'm like, that's actually bullying behavior. Because it's one thing to say, hey, we disagree on the weight classes or whatever the discussion was about for particular divisions, whatever the topic was. But you don't have to insult the other person. When you do, that undermines your credibility, even if you make good points otherwise. Like his point about, Dave advertising his supplement line when Bob was doing the same thing.
Yeah, he was doing it with Celsius. And if I was him, I wouldn't even really take that personally, that Celsius sponsored him. I mean, it's Celsius. They're sponsoring a lot of people. You know what I mean?
But even if he wasn't, let's say, even if he didn't have the Celsius stuff around him, what does, if I'm Dave Palumbo and Bob is having a conversation with me and it's online, to me, that's a little cowardly. But anyway, it's like not even together. It's one thing to say, hey, Bob, come on the show, or Dave, come on the show and let's have a conversation about that. That's different. Like if you've ever seen Dave and Milos talk about insulin protocols, that's very respectful to me. They don't always agree about everything, but it's very respectful. Milos never does those low shots, never. But Bob does. And, like I said, first of all, Dave should advertise his line just like any other athlete should advertise their line. Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing it right now.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I don't see
And
any problem with that.
I have Prime up there, and more plates, more dates. He's broken it down. It's not that good of a product, but it tastes very good. So I like it. And you got to give it to the Paul brothers. That's a really good looking bottle. I mean, it's like a collectible, and it tastes great. But I still stick typically to Gatorade.
Right.
But it's better. I'd say that's a little better than water. Like it's so.
But the thing about going back to the bullying, and Bob's approach, and it's taking accountability. Bullies do not take accountability. When people, I don't know, and I think it was actually, I want to say it was Dave Palumbo. I'm not 100%, so maybe you can correct me on this. That athletes rep thing, where was that brought up by Dave about saying Bob's not the athlete rep? He that's not his job. I mean, I've never seen anything in writing. I've never seen any posts to say, hey, athletes, or each of the pros, welcome to the pro IFBB Pro. Just to let you know, my name is Bob Ciccarello. I'm your athletes rep. If you have any kind of problems or issues or anything you want to bring to the table, feel free to contact me. That's never been out there, ever. And yet he still wants to call himself the athletes rep.
Yeah, I think that, Bob always starts it, but that was originally brought up by Lee Priest, I remember, a while back. And, Dave and Chris Cicito, they have their Heavy Muscle Radio every Sunday night, which I watch. And it's not even that they're like trying to bring Bob up, but it's, they say they just make jokes about Bob and being the athletes rep, and he's not. And, how can you not bring that up sometimes? It'd be like you saying you play in the NFL or something, you know what I mean? Or I play back in the NBA. Like, well, you don't, it's like, so why are you saying that? But
again, this comes from a place of insecurity. So for Bob, he feels that in order to be more respected, he has to put out all this kind of stuff, but it's not accurate. Again, the voice of bodybuilding, absolutely kudos. Like, he does such a great job, but stick within what your job is. Now, I've heard Tarek kind of back him up saying he's the athlete's rep, but I would like to say, okay, what are you doing? And if it's the whole, well, if athletes bring something to my attention, well, athletes don't know about you. What have you done to reach out to the athletes? It's not enough just to say, this is my title. It's well, have you introduced yourself? Oh, they should know who I am. Okay, do you follow up with them? Because that's what an athlete's rep should do. They should follow up with the athletes at the least an introductory letter. And it's been claimed that if people brought some stuff to his attention, if he doesn't agree with it, he doesn't bring it to the powers that be. That's not an athlete's rep. That's someone with a personal agenda. No, yeah, I'm not saying Bob has
voted in.
And yeah, it's never voted. It was never voted in. Mind you, I don't know who would want that position, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he wasn't voted in. But let's say he was voted in, just for the sake of argument. He should not have there should be some boundaries put down in place as far as, what he brings to the table and what he doesn't. Because if I'm Bob and I decide, oh, I don't like your idea, I'm not going to bring it to the table, because knowing the powers that be that I do, they're not going to give it any credence. That's not his decision. He can have that opinion, and he can say, look, I'll bring it to their attention. Hold your breath, but I will bring it to their attention and do a just job. And then whatever happens, happens. But no, I'm not going to take it to their attention because I think it's a dumb idea. No, that's not your job.
Yeah.
That's not your job. That's not, again, if it's an athlete, if you're representing the athlete's saying, I want you to bring X to the table. Let's say, I'm going to make this up. I don't even think this is an issue. Couples. When was the last time you've seen couples compete against other couple bodybuilders?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that.
So Or like couples could be even, let's say, mother-daughter, mother-son, like, let's say Lee Priest and his mom, they competed. So it can be just like any kind of couple in that respect. Now, I don't think there's enough out there to warrant that. But if I'm Bob, should we actually put a poll out? Maybe people aren't doing it because they think it's going to be a washed up idea. Why not, if I'm Bob, if I speak to the powers that be, if I'm the athlete's rep, send an email, a global email to say, is there any interest for this? And if there is, maybe we'll set up, whether it be something like around the Arnolds or the New York Pro, like some show, but we'll just do one just to see how it goes and what the interest is and see how people respond to that. Versus, there won't be enough people.
Yeah.
So if I had time, I think I would make a better athlete's rep.
Yeah. I think if there was a vote, he would not be the athlete's rep for sure.
But again, I don't know anyone who would want to do it. That's the thing. Because I don't think he gets paid for it. I don't know 100%. Do you know?
I don't think so. If it's not a real title, then no, I don't think so. I know, he gets paid to be a commentator / announcer.
Announcer, yeah.
But no, I don't think he gets paid for that. It maybe under the table, but and that's another kind of, I guess, criticism of Arnold I've always had is Arnold's one of the most famous people to ever live on the planet. He's up there with Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, countless people. And I think Arnold has done a ton of good for bodybuilding, but I think he could have done a lot more. And I think a good example of that is when he was commentating that show and he's talking about the guy's varicose veins. It's like, Arnold, who cares? I believe it's true, but Greg Valentino spoke about it and the fact that he was behind the steroid act after he left bodybuilding because he didn't want Lee Haney to beat his record. I don't know if that's true, but Greg, Greg is Greg, but he makes a lot of great points, and I think he has a lot of insider information that a lot of people don't have. But I think that's something Arnold would do is try to block Lee Haney from maybe, I don't know. But
I mean, that would be very unfortunate if that was the case. We don't have proof or anything, but bottom line is, there are people, fortunately, I mean, we were talking about Bob and Arnold, but there are people out there that do represent the sport properly, that are great ambassadors of the sport. Like, I don't know any bodybuilder who doesn't know the name Jay Cutler. Jay has been such an amazing ambassador. Flex Lewis is an amazing ambassador. Like there's a lot of, and it doesn't have to be like the open class, obviously. I mean, Flex was 212, he was going to be open. But if you look at Chris Bumstead, he's a good ambassador of the sport. There's women that are great ambassadors of the sport that I could, obviously Natalia Coelho, she's in women's physique. She does so much outreach stuff, and helps athletes and other kinds of things. She does lots of workshops and she volunteers. Like, she's such a great athlete, again, ambassador of the sport. It's not just the men, there's a bunch of women out there too. Obviously Linda Murray, so it's not like the older generation, the newer generation. So it's nice that there are good representatives. It's just unfortunate there's some key people that could have done better. And because, Bob's still in the sport, it's just kind of a little bit disappointing that he's not able to manage his emotions a little bit better to be more professional, because I think people do respect him, but when he goes past that line of expertise, he loses that respect. Now, I'm not saying he can't have an opinion, like when they do, who do you think is going to win, let's say the Olympia? Of course he can put his vote in, it's an opinion. But when he talks about it like he knows, or he knows better than other people because he's on stage and he sees what the guys look like. Okay, I understand that point. You can see what the guys look like, but if you're at the side of the stage, judges are not at the side of the stage for a reason, because you can't see everything clearly at the side of the stage when you're going side by side. So yes, you're going to see more than I would because you're there at the show. But even if you were there, you're still not a judge. You're not trained as a judge. You can have a good eye because you've been doing this for so many years, and I respect that. But again, stay in your lane, Bob. And I don't think athletes rep. Now, here's the thing. What does the athletes rep do? I haven't seen anything online. No, maybe there's a private email group for the pros. I don't know. But I'm not aware of it. But there's nothing out there where here's what the athletes rep does, guys, just so you know. You know, and it's just having a title for the sake of a title, I don't think is a good idea.
Yeah. Especially when, like I said, I don't think anybody would pick him as the athletes rep. You know, if there was a vote, I just don't think they would pick him. So, but, you know, we got on the topic of people in the sport and not being really representative of the true fitness industry. And those are definitely some good examples for sure, you know, that we spoke about. But is there anything further, Lesley, that you wanted to speak about on the bullying side of, well, gym bullies? Is there anything further that you wanted to speak of on that?
I would say, just kind of as a recap, nothing new, just as a recap, don't feel like you have to do this on your own. If you're not sure what to do, try to avoid contact with them, but do try to talk to at least, let's say, a gym buddy that you know, that you feel comfortable with, and say, hey, you know, have you had this experience with this guy or this girl? Because sometimes the bullies are girls, you know, so I don't want to pick on, I don't want to come across that bullies are only guys. It tends to be guys, but there's also girls out there that are bullies too. And they can be vicious in their own way, because so guys tend to attack physically and women tend to attack from a character point. So they'll put someone's reputation basically out the window, and they'll do kind of tactics which are not, either way it's not right. But when in doubt, talk to someone that you feel that you confide in, let's say a gym buddy, talk to the staff, talk to the manager. If you're afraid to go to the police, like I said, go to someone like myself to help you tailor something as far as a plan on what you can do. But the bottom line is you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would say talk to your friends, you know, get an opinion and then take it from there. You know what I mean? But yeah, 100%, because, you know, like you said, the gym should know about it. And if they don't do the right thing, then you can escalate it. Doesn't really matter what gym you're at. There's someone you can escalate it to. And if you're in a gym where the person that you escalate it to is just as bad as the person that did that, then yeah, you just leave the gym. Don't support the gym. You
Absolutely.
know, like, you vote with your dollar. I vote with my dollar. That was said in Bigger, Stronger, Faster, the movie. You vote with your dollar. And we're seeing it today a lot with certain companies. And that's how I've always viewed it. I vote with my dollar, and I don't support companies that I disagree with. They'll never get my support if I can help it. So, you know, I'll go to like a local shop instead of like a Target, or, you know, just little stuff like that. So, I think, like you said, removing yourself from the situation altogether is, because there's gyms around here that where I'm from where I'm not going to go to because I don't want to support them. I don't support what they do, how they treat people. No way. And I've had that experience with certain gyms where, unless I was really desperate, I'm not going in there, because I don't appreciate how they treat people. They don't deserve to have my money. So,
But let's bring up the topic of, let's say you live in a remote area and it's the only decent gym in town, basically within, a 10, 20, whatever kilometer mile radius. Then I would say, if you don't have another option for a gym, as far as moving the gym, go at a different time. I know it's a pain in the butt, but if you want to train and it's the only place you can train, unless you have the money and you basically buy pieces and do your own gym at home.
yeah.
That's another option. But again, I'm just trying to make sure we cover all the bases. But yes, go to another gym. But if you can't, go at a different time. I know you might, and that may not be realistic for some people because of their work schedule and family life. They might only have a small window, and that's the only window they can go. In which case, guess what? You might have to be creative with your workouts. You might have to do it in the playground and do some, whether it be plyometric training. You might need to do more body weight stuff. You could get something. Have you ever heard of a TRX?
Yes.
So it's a pulley system for people who aren't familiar with it, where you can hook it and you can do these workouts from your gym. So they're body weight, but you get a really good workout from it.
Yeah.
And you're not breaking the bank by buying all. And keep in mind the footprint, meaning the space that gym equipment takes. If you have a small place, you're not going to have enough space to literally put gym equipment, even if you had the money. But with a TRX, you could do that. So there are other options to look at, but to your point, talk to people. It doesn't hurt, and as far as to find out what are realistic solutions for your situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's nothing wrong with, like you've said, there's nothing wrong with removing yourself from a situation. And in fact, that's usually the best thing to do, because once you do that, then that person's got to move on to someone else, and you're not even in the picture, so that's, I did it, and I think you did it too. We built our own gyms during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and if there's a will, there's a way. So
There is. It's just being open-minded versus my life is over because I can't train at the gym. You can't train the way you want, but it doesn't mean you can't train.
right.
Yeah.
Lesley, is there anything else that you wanted to cover for this topic?
I think that's it, Mark. I think we covered it. But if the viewers come up with any further questions, either put it in the comments below or DM either Mark or myself, and we'd be happy to cover them in a future episode.
Yeah, as always, I always link your show on RX, the latest episode. I link your channel and your Instagram. And I'm on Threads now too. And I'm verified on Instagram now too. So I'm gonna put in the I guess the title, my Instagram and Lesley's Instagram, so that you can just go there. I'm not sure if you have a link tree, Lesley, but go to my link tree and then pretty much follow Lesley's page, and go to the proper resource in order to contact her. So if that's everything, Lesley, it was great to have you back on. And until next time, take care and keep doing your thing.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for having me on today. I look forward to our next episode.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks.